We have all looked up at the sky and felt the dizzying pull of the infinite, dreaming of shedding the weight of our earthbound existence to rise like smoke and vanish into the blue. It is the oldest and most seductive promise of the human spirit, that we might transcend our limitations, that we might touch the divine. But there is a shadow to this ambition, a warning etched into the oldest stories of our kind, a warning that the line between salvation and destruction is razor thin. This is the tragedy of Icarus, a tale not of a monstera-s wrath, but of a Phaedra-s love and a Sona-s recklessness, echoing through the millennia as a testament to the peril of reaching too high. To understand this fall, we must first look to the Labyrinth, the great maze temple on the island of Crete, where the Bronze Age king Minos held court. In this world, the gods of Olympus did not rule from afar. They walked on marble floors, their blood mingling with the blood of kings, their curses shaping the fate of nations. It was a time of architectural marvels and terrible sacrifices, where the greatest inventor of the age, Daedalus, found himself imprisoned not by iron bars, but by the very nature of the sea. Minos had trapped him. The king of Crete controlled the land and the waves, leaving only the open sky as a path to freedom. But man was not made to fly. This was the domain of the sun and the gulls, not of flesh and bone. Daedalus, a craftsman of unparalleled genius, looked at the birds wheeling above the high towers and saw not just beauty, but an escape. He decided that if he could not walk on water, he would conquer the air. Imagine the workshop, dim and smelling of hot wax and glue. Daedalus worked with a frantic, inspired energy, gathering the feathers of the gulls and falcons that swept the coastal winds. He sorted them, from the smallest down to the long, stiff quills of the wings, arranging them in a mimicry of Naturia-s design. He threaded them with linen and secured them with beeswax, melting it over a low fire until the air grew thick with the scent of honey and heat. When he strapped the contraption to his arms and beat the air, he felt the resistance of the wind, the sudden, buoyant lift. He had done the impossible. He had made a man a god of the upper air. He fashioned a smaller pair for his son, Icarus, a boy whose name would become synonymous with the very concept of falling. The day of the escape arrived. They stood upon the high parapet of the tower, the wind whipping at their hair, the vast, indifferent Mediterranean stretching out to the horizon. Daedalus strapped the wings to his Sona-s shoulders, tightening the buckles with the trembling hands of a father who knows he is about to hand a weapon to a child. The atmosphere was heavy with unspoken fear. "The middle path is the way," the old master instructed, his voice cracking against the wind. "Do not fly too low, for the sea spray will clog the feathers and drag you down to a drowning death. And do not fly too high, for the heat of the sun will melt the wax and undo my work." It was a command of moderation, a plea for balance in a world of extremes. Icarus nodded, his eyes bright with the intoxicating thrill of the coming flight. They leaped. For a moment, there was only the terror of the drop, the stomach lurching into the throat. Then the wings caught the air. They rose. Imagine the shock of it, the sensory overload as the ground fell away. The tiny people on the roads became ants. The grazing cattle became pebbles. The wind roared in their ears, cold and exhilarating. They were no longer men of Crete. They were creatures of the sky. Daedalus led the way, his wings beating in a steady, rhythmic thrum, eyes fixed on the distant shores of Sicily, calculating the distance, measuring the energy. But behind him, Icarus was drunk on the rush. The sensation of flight was unlike anything else in the world. It was power. It was freedom. It was a direct challenge to the gods who had kept his father enslaved. The boy began to test his limits. He saw a hawk above him, soaring effortlessly into the azure dome, and a reckless ambition seized his heart. He angled his wings upward. The air grew warmer. The sunlight, which had been a companion, now became a physical weight, a pressing heat that beat down on his shoulders. He climbed higher, and the blue of the sky deepened into a violet infinity. The cheering of the wind in his ears sounded like applause. He looked down and saw his father, a small, dark shape following a conservative line below, and he felt a surge of invincibility. He was the son of Daedalus. Surely, he could fly closer to the sun than any mortal before. Then came the disaster, silent and sudden. The heat, relentless and ancient, softened the beeswax. It began to drip. Icarus felt a looseness in his shoulders, a shift in the geometry of his flight. One by one, the feathers began to slip from their matrix. He flailed his arms, tried to recapture the air, but the structure disintegrated. The white feathers, loosened from the wax, swirled around him like a sudden snowstorm in the height of summer. The lift vanished. The mocking embrace of gravity returned. He plummeted. The fall must have felt like an eternity, the sea rushing up to meet him, an expanse of blue that matched the sky he had tried to conquer. He struck the water with a force that shattered the breath from his lungs. The vast, cold ocean, which Daedalus had warned him of, swallowed him instantly. And there, amidst the foam and the salt, the boy who touched the sun vanished. Daedalus, looking back, saw the feathers floating on the surface of the water like scattered flowers. He circled, his heart hammering a frantic rhythm against his ribs, searching the waves for a dark head, a reaching hand. There was nothing. He cried out Icarus' name, but the wind stole the sound away. He was forced to continue his flight, a pilot now burdened with the heaviest cargo of all, the knowledge that his genius had killed his own blood. He landed on the shores of Sicily, weary and broken, his wings stripped from him, leaving him once again a mere mortal crawling on the dust. To the ancient Greeks, this was not merely a sad story. It was a moral map of the universe. It was the definition of hubris, the arrogance that precedes a fall. The Greeks believed that the cosmos had an order, a scale of being. To try to ascend above Oni's station, to attempt to rival the gods, was to invite destruction. Icarus failed because he did not respect the limits of his nature. He allowed the intoxication of success to blind him to the laws of physics and the will of the heavens. The myth tells us that while ingenuity can build the wings, only wisdom can keep them in the air. It is a warning to every generation that talent without discipline is a shipwreck waiting to happen. Yet, the legacy of Icarus is more than just a cautionary tale against pride. It has endured in our art and our language because it captures the duality of the human spirit. We are Icarus. We're the species that looked at the birds and decided we would fly, even though we have no wings. We built rockets and atom smashers and cities in the clouds. Every time we push the boundary of the possible, we risk the fall. Ovid, the Roman poet who immortalized this tale, famously wrote that Daedalus tried to fit the wings to the boy's shoulders and wept as he did so, knowing the weight of what he was giving. That image remains with us, the tragic necessity of risk. We call the seas around those Greek islands the Icarian Sea, a permanent grave marker in the geography of the world. Ultimately, the myth asks us what kind of failure we wish to be. Icarus is remembered not for his flight, but for his fall, yet he is also remembered for